Alright, so finally, that's the time when we will be adding some styles to our project. And for that, we'll be using a framework called Tailwind CSS. That's the most popular solution to style your website these days, so definitely worth learning it. Now, what is Tailwind CSS? So they describe themselves as a utility-first CSS framework, and Tailwind provides a set of predefined classes to let you quickly build custom user interfaces that are very consistent. So here you see an example of how this looks like. You are adding some predefined classes. Yes, this has some learning curve. You need to remember those class names, but not always, because there are some pretty cool tools, for example plugins to VS Code, that will suggest those class names. Anyway, yes, you need to learn a little, but that's the case with every CSS framework out there. Now, you are fine to use pure CSS if you prefer to, or any other tools that you know or that you want to learn, like Bootstrap, Bulma, whatever. But I've just decided to use Tailwind because Tailwind is definitely the most popular solution in Laravel world. Now, setting up Tailwind, and basically that's the case for most of the front-end tools these days, is not easy. Certainly not for beginners. Don't get me wrong, that's not super hard, but not easy. I mean, it tends to cause problems for beginners, and it's usually pretty hard to solve once you run into problems. So I don't want to scare you. I'm just saying that setting this up would require me to explain a lot of tooling, like Vite, the build tool that Laravel is using. So to just get straight to using Tailwind, there is a way that you can get set up super fast. So if you would go to the documentation installation page, you see different ways of setting up, and in this course we will be setting up properly using a build tool. Later on, for now, we'll use the play CDN that they provide. That's super simple. You just need to add a script, this line, and you can now magically start using all the Tailwind classes to style your website. So that's our page right now. I will just copy this script, and don't worry that we are having a script and using a CSS framework, because Tailwind has a lot of magic, and especially display CDN needs to do some extra things to make Tailwind work smoothly. That's why this is a JavaScript. Copy this. Now jump into the code editor and open the layout file. So app blade PHP and just paste it here. Save the changes. Now refresh the page, and well, it looks much different. The font has changed, and on the main page you can see that the pagination now looks a little better. Everything looks styled. Those buttons, we haven't added a single style here yet. Those buttons really look much better. And the reason for that is that by default, they are being styled using Tailwind classes. So you can see that even Laravel, without asking you about anything, is defaulting to using Tailwind. All right, so let's go ahead and add something. So this list and generally our application view is much more readable. Alright, so let's do some initial reorganization of our app layout. Now also, I just wanted to let you know that you can read about all the classes that we are going to use on the Tailwind docs. And you can also use this quick search feature. So just hit this quick search and just type container. That's one of the classes that we are going to use, and you've got a full explanation of what this means, how it works, and you got some examples of the usage. All right, so let's jump to our app played PHP. And let me add some styles to the body element. So add class and let's set it as a container. Now, this would create a centered container with a max width based on the screen size. Then let's add MX auto, and this will horizontally center the element within the container. Margin top 10 will add a margin on top of body using 10 units, and unit is something that's defined inside the Tailwind config file, which we don't have it here yet, as this is mostly configurable where you install Tailwind using build tools, and we are not doing that. So you will see how it works by default anyway. Also, let's add the same margin on the bottom, and let's set the maximum screen size to large. This will equal 32 rem or 512 pixels. Also, I think I owe you a short explanation of what CDN means. So CDN is a shortcut for Content Delivery Network, and CDN is a distributed network of servers, and they deliver content to users based on their geographical location, and this improves the website performance and reduces latency. So generally, it is fine to use some third-party styling or JavaScript libraries that are downloaded from CDNs. All right, so let's save changes here and let's see what changes did we make. So this looks much better. We've got all the items centered. So we also don't want to stretch those tasks too much, even if the screen is bigger. We want them centered. And also, if you go into a task, you can see that that's much more readable than when it's stretched along the whole screen. Now, we still have a problem that it's all squeezed together. There's no separation between individual elements. We'll be fixing that. Also, buttons and links, they all look the same. Also, the forms, you can't say this looks good. That's really unusable at this point, but don't worry, we will be fixing everything. All right, so first maybe let's try to separate all those items. So it would be clear where is the title, where are the buttons, and where are the tasks. So that's an index played PHP. So let me change that to a nav element, because this is a kind of navigation. Now let me add a class here and add some bottom margin. So we have some separation here. Now let's go back to app. Here we've got an H1 element. So as you see, by using Tailwind, all the styles were reset. So even H1 or H3 and H6 element and normal text, they have the same font, the same color, the same weight, and the same size. So we can customize what is the text size of an H1 element. So you can use text large or text XL, which would make text a little bigger, or maybe text 2XL. So all those classes are listed on the Tailwind docs, and you would have to get used to reading a little about every single one of those, but then I really trust that you will quickly grasp all those classes, and then those that you use most often, you will quickly remember them. All right, let's also add some margin at the bottom. So we need those two classes. And now we have some kind of separation. All right, let's go back to index there's another navigation. We need to make sure that we've got the top margin. So now it's all squeezed. All right, now let's add some styles to this add task link. So let's make the font medium, text gray 700. So this would be a little lighter than the default black text. We want it to be underline, and we want to set the color of this underline. So this is done using decoration, setting the color. Let's say I want pink, but then I want a 500 tone. And this has to be class with 2S. All right, let's see. All right, this is how this looks like. So it definitely stands out. I think we can keep those tasks as they are. Now also, let me show you a blade directive that's called class. So using this class directive, it's much easier to add some conditional classes. So you would add an array here. And for example, there is a Tailwind class called line through, and we would only like to display it when the task is completed. So how this directive works is you might add an array of classes that should be always displayed. Let's say you might want it to have a bold font always, but if you want to display classes conditionally, then you add a key with the list of classes. Don't have to be just one, you can just separate them with a space, and this would be the condition. So if it evaluates to true, those classes would be added, otherwise they won't. Let's see if this works. So always bold, but only line through when the task is done. I think this looks cool. We just don't need this font bold. That was just an example of how you can add classes that are always added. So we want this. All right, so that was something. I think we have added quite some classes, so I think we might take a short break before we continue styling this page and especially the form page, because, well, we've got some work to do. Let's take a short break.